So if I want to find north, I look at that arrow, and it never changes. That's south, north, east, and west. So we go, if we want to go, we go this way, we go to the beach. If we go this way, we go to the mountains. And we go this way, we go to New York City. Have you ever been to New York City? Have you been to Philadelphia?
This is where we are, so we're right here.
Where? Show me again. You guys are Boy Scouts.
Yes.
That's I mean, in and of itself right now, that's a big deal. You guys, it takes a commitment. We're kind of a spot now that's that means something to you guys. So where are we right now? We were talking about that earlier on this map. Where are we in?
So,
I think we're down there by the Richard Creek Trail.
Yeah. So,
and I think this is cool for me because it reminds me of early in scouting. I think one of my first years when Jim Lathan came out here with me to do my 5-mile hike because that was a requirement I had to get done for second class, and he really sacrificed his own time. I really appreciate him doing that. That really inspired me.
tell me why you guys stick around. It's not just to get eagle. It's for what? What are you doing?
I think it's growing and it builds a community, really. And you have lots of scout leaders who are other adult influences in your life that can really help you grow as a person.
That's incredible. What about you? What's scouting for you?
Well, I think for me,
It's
like,
good.
it's definitely parts of what he said, but also for me, it's like the experiences and learning the different skills and all the camping and all sorts of stuff like that. It's just really fun.
Man, that's awesome. I bet somebody watching this might be interested to know, like, where you guys meet, like where.
We meet at the church on Monday nights at 7.
So you've told me that the adults that are involved in scouting matter to you.
Yeah.
You've told me that they join you on the journey.
Yeah.
And they give freely of their time.
For them to go out of structure, I know I've had Mr. Grother help me too with Eagle stuff. He takes time out of his days. I really appreciate that too.
He's like the best bus driver I have for youth ministry too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your first year at summer camp like?
That was an interesting one. So I've been now 4 times after that, because it's really fun once you learn to enjoy it. But that first night was a bit rough.
So so you Raven Knob? Yeah.
And so first night, I think I was crying at like 3 a.m. roughly. I don't know the time, same as I didn't know the place.
That's a lonely time of the day though. 3 a.m. is a lonely. Yeah.
Mr. Freeman was there for me, and when I was sad about not having my parents, and he knew that I would be okay, and he didn't need to like say I need to go home or something. He knew I would be okay, and I just needed someone to be with, and he was really great, and that's so gracious of him. I would hate to have to wake up at 3 a.m. to deal with the kid, but I really appreciate that.
I tell people all the time that youth ministry wasn't a big deal for me in church.
Yeah.
Scouting was how I learned how to, what faith meant, and because I saw it modeled by a bunch of different adults from different places and things like that. Well, that's the great thing about this week at worship. We're going to be able to begin this understanding of orientating ourselves and our faith. The great thing is that some of us are still walking and journeying and learning. I got to tell you that, I mean, as a pastor, a second career minister, I enjoy these guys teaching me on a regular basis where my faith can be found and what I can found my faith in. And that takes some journeying. It also takes some people to accompany you on the trail. I'm grateful for who our scouts are, who our church have decided they could be, and the way that our faith is shared with them. I'm grateful that you're joining us this morning for worship at White Plains. Welcome to White Plains.
Unless we're really unusual people, most of us have some times in life that are disorienting. If you haven't been disoriented in some way by this season of pandemic, I'm very glad that you've had that experience, but that isn't true for most of us. What is the thing that you use to help yourself get righted again, to get oriented again? For many of us, it's keeping a focus on Christ, on Jesus. Here's how it's expressed in Hebrews. Do you see what this means? All these pioneers who blazed the way, all these veterans cheering us on. It means we'd better get on with it. Strip down and start running and never quit. No extra spiritual fat, no parasitic sins. Keep your eyes on Jesus, who both began and finished this race we're in. Study how he did it, because he never lost sight. Did you hear that? He never lost sight of where he was headed. The exhilarating finish in and with God. He could put up with anything along the way. Cross, shame, whatever. And now he's there in the place of honor right alongside God. When you find yourself flagging in your faith, go over that story again, item by item. That long litany of hostility he plowed through, that will shoot some adrenaline into your souls.
So I'm changing the strings on this old guitar, 12 string, and got the tools I need, wire cutters, string winder. Got to loosen all the strings, right? And we'll eventually we'll get all of these strings cut, changed. Can you see that? I'd say they need changing, right? So as I was preparing to do this task, I got to thinking about, I'd need a set of strings, and I'd need the right tools, and then the task to do, right? And got me thinking about how it relates to working on keeping myself sharp, keeping ourselves sharp in discipleship. Just like this guitar needs a new set of strings in order to really perform and operate the way it was designed to. We're kind of the same way, and we need tools like maybe a Bible and a highlighter, or worship, prayer. There's a sacredness in just the ordinary tasks of reading Scripture daily, going to God in prayer daily. Dr. Lee's been talking to us about this little book, Practicing the Presence of God, my brother Lawrence. And I've been thinking about just the everyday little tasks that we do, like changing the strings on this guitar. You can find God in the simplest of things. I even wrote a prayer about the changing of the strings and how it makes me think about change in myself. Let's pray that now. Lord, it's time for a change. These strings are rusty and rough beneath my fingers. I wish I could say they had worn out from use. But if I'm honest, it's more from neglect. It costs me something in time and money to be making this change right now. And the new strings will stretch and fall out of tune if I don't take more time to play them. I might even stab my finger as I wind the strings and shed a little blood, but I'll try not to. If that happens, it's just part of the cost. You know about that, don't you? When this is done, there will be a chime and a mellowing as they break in over time. As these strings age, let me age them with praise, and until the time comes to renew. Lord, it's time for a change. Amen.
Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but He brought me in. Oh, His love for me. Oh, His love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last, He has ransomed
We were never promised that life was going to be easy. In fact, Jesus tells us there'll be troubles in this world. Paul talks to the church at Rome and helps them take a look at what we need and what we're given as a part of living in this particular broken world that we inhabit. By entering through faith into what God has always wanted to do for us, set us right with Him, make us fit for Him, we have it all together with God because of our Master Jesus. And that's not all. We throw open our doors to God and discover at the same moment that He's already thrown open the door for us. We find ourselves standing where we'd always hoped we might stand, out in the wide open spaces of God's grace and glory, standing tall and shouting our praise. There's more to come. We continue to shout our praise even when we're hemmed in with troubles. Do you hear that? Now think about that for a minute. We continue to shout our praise even when we're hemmed in with troubles, because we know how troubles can develop passionate patience in us, and how that patience in turn forges the tempered steel of virtue. Dr. Wacker would have called that character, keeping us alert for whatever God will do next. In alert expectancy such as this, we're never left feeling shortchanged. Quite the contrary. We can't round up enough containers to hold everything God generously pours into our lives through the Holy Spirit. Thanks be to God.
Heaven filled me with more than enough. Broke down my levees and my bluffs. Let the flood wash me. And one day when the sky rolls back on us, some rejoice and the others fuss, 'cause every knee must bow and tongue confess the Son of God, He's forever blessed. His is the kingdom and we're the guests. So put your voice up to the test. Sing, Lord, come soon. Oh yeah. Farther along the way, no, I'll look back out it. Farther along the way, understand why. So she
Welcome to worship. I'm Ray, one of the pastors at White Plains, and as always, we're humbled and honored that you're with us this morning as we attempt to create a worship environment, a worshiping way online that is meaningful and interesting and transformative. And I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking to you about that. We just finished our Conversations series, and that's a very different way of presenting a message. And let me just give you an insight of what we're trying to do. There are messages, we call it expository, where we're going line by line with the verse and trying to give you the understanding of that. There are, and we don't do a whole lot of line by line, but we do the biblical stuff. And by the way, let me just also tell you, everything we do is based on biblical understanding, historical understanding, theologically, who and what we are as disciples of Christ. But there are inspirational messages and messages that we believe are like evangelical, where we're wanting people to say yes, to make a decision for the Christ we serve. Maybe you. Not to force people, but just maybe invite you to ask the questions, to explore this thing called the Christian faith in Jesus Christ. There are messages that are there that are hopefully getting a place of inspiring you to a better life as a disciple. We try to do messages that are historical and relevant, and maybe give you the subtleties of what was God wanting us or trying to guide us to do. We did a whole series on parables, trying to understand not just what was obvious in the parables, but what were the backdoor places? What were the places that maybe you didn't get if you just read the parable itself? And we do these in a variety of ways so that hopefully even the subtle things like walking down a path have a reason. The path that I'm on has different ways you can go. When we all learn and experience life in various and sundry ways, we all have a unique learning style. I'm more of an audible reader and tactile. I want to read it and I want to hear it. Some of us, it's just when we experience, get our hands on it. And so we can take all kinds of courses, and what we're trying to do is reach as many people as possible with as many different avenues possible to hear the message, the good news of Christ. So when you hear us, number one, it's know that I'm not the only one doing all the research. As a matter of fact, we'd be in a mess if that were true. But I do a ton of reading, and we have a team of 5 other people that are doing research and understanding. So all these messages are put together by a team. And not only do you get other minds, but you also hold each other accountable, because you've got to come to the realm of understanding of good theology and the right word, the right tone. And so all that is to say, like the conversations, like the parables, you're going to hear multiple avenues and methods by which we tell this message of the Christ. So thank you for your patience and your affirmation. And now hopefully a little bit of clarity. So that's what I want you to hear. And today we start this new series that we're really excited about. And it's helping us focus on what might God be up to in a particularly perilous, difficult time, personally, corporately, communally. Might it be that, not that we don't believe that God causes the bad things to happen, but we do believe that God redeems those things and uses those things. And you ever thought that maybe some of those hurtful, devastating things, challenging things, can be used by God to refine, to make better, to pull out the best of who you and I are? Doesn't mean that thing is good or fun. Doesn't even mean I'd want to repeat it. I think about that in the pandemic. I don't want to go through another pandemic. Once in a lifetime is enough. But what if, when I come out the other side of it, that I've discovered some things about myself and about my community and about our Lord that is bigger and brighter and more glorious than I ever knew possible? Wouldn't that just be like the engineering, the arithmetic of the God we serve, to take the worst, the crucible of the Christ on the cross, and make it the most hopeful symbol that could ever be seen on the planet? So we're talking about a crucible. Well, what is a crucible? Well, in its foundation, it really is taking an object, taking some sort of container and putting something in it, and through the process of usually heat, fire, changing or making this thing almost like a sieve, where the thing that you want comes to the fore, comes out of it, and the other parts are dissipated or done away with it. So you have this a refining process that comes, and that's really the genesis of what we understand as crucible today. But before that, though, there was even something more important. We believe this word, it's kind of a hard word to get the genesis of where it came from and how, but the best we can come up with, it came from the cross of Christ, the crucible, and came from the cross and then illumined. The cross illumined, which became the epitome of a crucible, where something so hideous, so horrible, becomes a beacon of hope. And so that is where that word crucible kind of comes from. But then over the centuries, and it has come to mean this refining. And again, the ultimate part of that is being the cross of Christ, whereby an execution becomes a means by which hope is given to all humanity, where life is given to all of us, so that the grace and mercy and love of the Christ can be shared with all. And it's like the outpouring of all that Christ was. I mean, as you look at the crucifixion of Christ, who would have ever dreamed or thought of, no humankind, that out of that horrible, horrible act of execution would become a bridge to life, to salvation, to life beyond what we could ever dream. And that is what that crucifix, what that execution did. We could have never, ever thought of anything like that. And so there are those, Jim Harnish, who has written a book during the pandemic, a United Methodist clergy person, and a friend of White Plains, has written that maybe this time we're going through is sort of a crucible. The pandemic, there's nothing good about the pandemic. I mean, there's nothing good. But out of, might it be that God in God's wisdom redeems things in ways we could never calculated, understood, or thought about. And that is perhaps what maybe is going on here. That there is something boiling, something going on that helps us understand who we are and what we are, even through a pandemic, to cause us to a greater good. So as Harnish mentions in his book, very much like the crucible of Christ becomes the hope for all, what is this pandemic teaching you and me? What are the crises in your life teaching you? How can those things possibly be used for a greater good in yourself, greater good for others? And that's what will eventually lead us to a better way. Will reorient us to a place that is different than we intended or thought about, but actually leads to a better place. As our team was thinking about Crucible, one of them came up as we're designing our messages, says, well, you know, the Marines, they have this event or challenge that's called the Crucible. And so immediately our minds went to our friend, one of the officers of our church, Mark Cavallero. And so we invited him out to come out and talk a little bit about the Crucible. So Mark, thank you, brother, for joining us, and even putting on the USMC toboggan there. Mark was an officer in the military, Marine Corps. He did his service. He still serves. Mark started it, founded, ran a business for many years. We came across this Crucible, and obviously as a Marine, we thought immediately, Mark will know something about this. Just a little bit about this. Again, you went as an officer, so your life was a little bit different than these folks that are going through the Crucible. But I want to help our people understand that we're using a microcosm of this military kind of endeavor, and people will naturally, some of us will get hooked on, well, that's a military thing, but don't get focused on this. Get focused on what does it do? Right. What does it do for these young men and women? And so what is it, first of all?
Well, I mean, it's a transformative process. It changes who they are fundamentally. The enlisted program is called boot camp. Marine Corps boot camp is legendary. I mean, everybody's heard about boot camp, Harris Island or San Diego, MCRD, 13-week process. And the Crucible is the culminating exercise and test them. To bring it all together, to show them that they have what it takes. It brings all these things together in a high-stress environment. It's 54 hours. 54 hours with very little sleep, very little food, a lot of physical activity. You're tired, you're stressed, but it forces you to use all those skills that you've learned to accomplish a mission.
You
It's
mess
safe,
up.
but you can get hurt.
Because
you
there's
can
a lot
get
of
hurt,
physical-
You can be tired. You can, in several, Marines in every class get hurt. In fact,
Yeah.
I got injured when I went through my initial Marine
Right.
Corps training. Broke a bone in my leg.
Yeah.
Had to come back through.
And as you said, the people are reaching their limits, right? And what a person can physically, mentally, emotionally do.
Right. Yeah, it's stressful. It's very stressful.
Yeah.
And during boot camp, during officer training, especially during the events like the Crucible, you get to a point, and this probably happens multiple times, where you think, I can't go on anymore. I can't hike anymore. I can't carry this pack. I'm tired. I've got blisters. I'm sore. But you have to go beyond those limits. And so you really have to reach down and get that extra little bit of motivation to push through those fears, push through that pain, push through that tiredness to accomplish the mission.
As we think about the pandemic, all that's happened to us in this past 2 years, I guess you could sort of say it in a communal sense with the whole world. We've gone through maybe a little C crucible.
I think it's been transformative. It's changed all of us, and I think it's caused all of us to reach down and have to figure out who we really are and where are we going and what's it all about.
Yeah.
So it has been transforming, I think.
And I think with that, I would assume, just like in the Marine Corps, if I'm out there in the Crucible, there are going to be times I'm going to get so freakishly mad and angry, and I'm hurting. That's happened to us too. Yeah.
Things don't go the way you plan.
Yeah.
And and that's what we call in the Marine Corps, that's what we call friction. Friction is that invisible force that makes things that you think are going to be easy, it makes them difficult. And things that you know are going to be hard, it makes them seemingly impossible.
Yeah.
And sometimes in my life, it seems like friction is what I deal with every day.
Yeah.
The things that I know are going to be a little tough, and it's like, goodness gracious, it shouldn't be this hard.
Right.
Life should not be this hard.
It should be an easy thing.
It does get hard.
And that's where my gut is, Mark, with you particularly, but many of us, when those friction moments, those chaotic moments, hurtful moments hit us, is when we really lean into our faith and we really dig down deep. What is this?
You do. You really have to have faith. You have to have faith, and you have to call on that faith.
Yeah.
And believe in that faith.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to say, oh, I've got faith, but do you really believe it?
Yeah.
Because if you really believe it, you're going to stick in there and keep fighting.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, it's so easy to just give up and say, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do
Who
it.
needs this?
Yeah.
And that's where I guess this crucible for all of us, it can throw us so off that we don't have a direction to go. We get all turned around, we get all bothered, and then we lose our focus, we'll lose our foundation, and then we can really be off on a pretty bad trajectory.
We can. And I laugh because I was just out here last week doing training for Boy Scouts.
Umstead State Park.
That's right, Umstead State Park, and we're training for a big trip, backpacking trip this summer. And so I was out here by myself doing some training. I was going to go about 9 miles, and with the pack, and just got really focused on my own thoughts and kind of lost in my thoughts. And lo and behold, made a wrong turn.
Wait a minute.
I made
You're
a
an
wrong turn
officer
on
in the
the
Marine
trail,
Corps. You've led tons and tons of people,
Hikes,
and you're out here in the woods by yourself.
Made a wrong turn.
You get off.
I lost my focus. I wasn't really paying attention, and I made a right where I should have made a left, and resulted in about 3 extra miles for me, which I needed the extra training, but I just hadn't planned on
So
it.
what did you do?
Well, when things started looking a little bit wrong, it's like, wait a minute, this is not where I should be. I got out my map, I got out my compass, and I figured out where I was. I looked at the position of the sun, and okay, I think I know where I'm at now. I reoriented myself and figured out, okay, what's the best way, the most effective way to get back on course and get back where I need to go.
Yeah.
And that's what I did, and just changed the trail that I was taking and came right back.
Yeah. So you had to stop, reevaluate.
Reorient.
And that can happen in life. If we get too focused on the negative and the horrible parts of the crucible, the crucifixion of Christ, this horrible pandemic. That line goes, have a death in the family. Those things can really mess you up unless you have that foundation and you understand, oh, wait a minute, I'm off on a tangent, I'm off, but the Christ, the ultimate crucible brings me back to where I'm supposed to be.
Right, brings you focused in the right direction and focused on the things that are important.
Yeah. Mark always has some wisdom that I never thought of. And here's a guy who has taught military units, has led military units on knowing where they are and what to do. And here he is just a few miles from his house, and doggone if he doesn't get lost. Why did he get lost? Well, you heard him say it. He got lost because he had all of a sudden gotten his own mind and was thinking other things and not paying close attention to where he was or what he was doing, and probably pretty sure of himself that, oh, I'm, not even thinking about it, I'm on the right path. And so he didn't even question it really until he realized, oh, holy cow, I'm in the wrong place. Now that was for camping and for Boy Scouts and orienteering, but that's kind of what we're alluding to with our lives and our spiritual lives. It is extremely easy to think we're on the right path, that everything is good, but then head off and not even think about it in the wrong direction. But sure that we know what we're doing or where we are. And the truth of the matter is we're off the path. We're lost. But what we have to be careful of is that we can, if we're not careful, grab hold of anything that's coming our way when we're in that mode of disorientation, where we're kind of mixed up. I think this whole pandemic, whether we want to admit it or not, has us so disoriented that we're angry with each other, we're angry with community, we're angry with politicians, we're angry at mask wearing, we're angry if anybody tells us what we think we should do. Well, I don't know about you, but I appreciate people telling me what they think I should do. I may not agree with them, but I appreciate it because they're trying to help me. But when we just go at these things because we're yelling, we're trying to grab a hold of anything that can help us. I think that's what we're doing, even in the course of the pandemic. I think in the church we do the same thing, and these trajectories of we get so involved in culture and politics, we get all that involved in the church as well, and in our personal faith. One of my favorite writers, one of my favorite teachers, personal teachers, is a guy who taught many years over at Duke Divinity School, became dean of the chapel, became a bishop of the United Methodist Church. Time magazine named him one of the top influencers of the Christian faith and in culture a few years back. He is the number 2 influential writer to pastors on the planet, and he happens to be in our backyard, Bishop Willimon. He's actually preached at White Plains before, a long time ago, and many of you know him. He has something to say to us about when we're in those times, what can help us. Let's hear what Bishop Willimon has to say.
I'm trying to ask, I wonder what God is doing now among us that may make me look at things differently. As a Christian, you keep coming to these times in your life when you don't know whether you're standing at Good Friday or Easter. You don't know whether this is the end. We were defeated, it's over, nice, we tried, didn't get him elected Messiah, or are you, why are you looking for the living among the dead? Get out of here, go, tell somebody, he's risen. Maybe this is holy dismantling that God is doing. In your church, I bet right now, thanks to COVID perhaps, and thanks to the condition of the United Methodist Church, maybe this has been a time when you've gone back to core values and you've said, what do you love about this church? I was in a United Methodist Church in Matthews, North Carolina, thriving, dynamic church. And I said to them, in the present moment, as far as United Methodist Church is concerned, I think each congregation has got to pray, Lord, don't let us get distracted. Don't let us give more power to the General Conference of the United Methodist Church than it deserves. I said, if you meet Jesus Christ here on a regular basis, if you have grown in your closeness with God here at this church, stay focused. Stay focused on that. Mm-hmm. And so maybe we will look back on the last 50 years, the time I've been in ministry, as a time when we took on a lot of stuff that wasn't essential, that was distracting. We're getting back to the core. Mm-hmm. And I think the core is Jesus Christ and his mission. And so let's stay focused on that. I think the core is Jesus Christ and his mission, and so let's stay focused on that.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my life. Riches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance, now and always. Thou and thou only, be first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. High King of heaven, my victory won.
Now that was for camping, for Boy Scouts, but it's a powerful story. But what we have to be careful of is that we can, if we're not careful, grab hold of anything.
So if you follow this map, it can tell you exactly where you need to be. This is downtown. This is where the city of Raleigh is here. You see all the streets? Look at them real close. You see the streets and the roads?
Yeah.
There's the light.
Downtown Raleigh.